According to Roger McNamee, we need to stop thinking about infrastructure as an economic stimulant and start thinking about it as strategy. Economic stimulants produce bridges to nowhere. Strategic investment in infrastructure produces a foundation for long-term growth. On today's episode of Jamaica Magazine, we review the successes of the Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing in 2014 and how the infrastructural developments are fueling growth. Later, transforming communities through housing opportunities. Good day, I'm Arroya Eubanks. We have all this and more for your viewing pleasure. So please stay with us. We get the ball rolling with the news.
I had a plan for my life. I was going to be a doctor. I was going to be the first in my family to do great things. Then a friend of mine sold me into prostitution. You mash up my life.
Stop human trafficking. It destroys lives. If you or anyone you know has been a victim of human trafficking, call 811 or 1-888-PROTECT. Be wise. Open your eyes. Spot them. Stop them. A message brought to you by the National Task Force Against Trafficking in Persons.
Good day, I'm Stacey Ann Smith and this is your GIS News for Wednesday, January 21. Small and medium-sized businesses are now poised to gain more access to equity financing through the Jamaica Stock Exchange Junior Market. This is being made possible through a partnership involving the Multilateral Investment Fund of the Inter-American Development Bank and the Jamaica Stock Exchange. The agreement was signed on Wednesday during Day 2 of the 10th Jamaica Stock Exchange Conference on Investments and the Capital Markets.
This is an opportunity for the funding to continue and for us to develop this market and by extension provide a major avenue for growth in our economy.
The announcement was supported by Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller.
My hope, ladies and gentlemen, is that it will become the norm for the financial resources needed by young entrepreneurs to increasingly be mobilized through the stock market.
The Standing Orders Committee of Parliament has recommended that starting this year, only senior government and opposition members be allowed to participate in the budget and sectoral debates. The recommendations were agreed on in Tuesday's meeting of the committee and will be sent to the House of Representatives for approval. If the House agrees, it would mean that the 2015-2016 budget debate will only have presentations from the Prime Minister, Finance Minister, Opposition Leader and another representative from the opposition. And no longer will all 63 members of Parliament be allowed to contribute to the sectoral debate. That process will be confined to senior ministers and opposition spokespersons. Instead, there's a recommendation for an annual constituency debate open to all MPs. April 28 is the date set for the House of Representatives to vote on adopting the Caribbean Court of Justice (CCJ) as Jamaica's final appellate court. On Tuesday, parliamentarians made closing arguments on the three bills that would allow the CCJ to replace the UK-based Privy Council. They are an act to make provision for the implementation of the agreement establishing the Caribbean Court of Justice, an act to amend the Constitution of Jamaica to provide for the replacement of appeals to Her Majesty in Council, and an act to amend the Judicature Appellate Jurisdiction Act. Prime Minister Portia Simpson Miller closed out the debate, reiterating that a positive vote would result in greater access to justice for the Jamaican people.
History and circumstances have now placed the power and duty in our hands by our vote to empower our fellow citizens in that respect.
The three bills require a two-thirds majority in both the lower and upper houses of Parliament in order to be passed. Energy Minister Philip Paulwell says government's decision to remove taxes from the importation of solar items and the facilitation of access to financing has led to an expansion in the use of photovoltaic or solar equipment to generate electricity.
We have enabled businesses and homeowners to access loans, low interest rate loans, to procure renewables, especially solar.
He says persons are also more empowered to sell electricity to the national grid under the net billing system. To date, approximately 220 licenses have been granted, providing about 2 megawatts of power.
That has been a tremendous policy move that has encouraged our people to move towards utilizing greater renewable sources.
Minister Paulwell was speaking at a solar energy auditing and lighting technologies workshop recently. And finally, children at the early childhood level who have a range of learning disabilities are now getting specialized help through a new project. The Screening, Assessment and Very Early Remedial SAVOR project is an initiative of the Voluntary Organization for the Upliftment of Children, VOUCH. The program, which was launched last Wednesday, provides diagnostic services and support to children ages 2 to 5 years and 11 months.
VOUCH Basic School SAVOR project is the only one of its kind in Jamaica. It indicates a new recognition of the transformative effect of early diagnosis and treatment.
The program is currently being offered at the VOUCH Basic School at One National Hero Circle. Already, 17 children have been identified for assistance. And that's it for GIS News Today. I'm Stacey Ann Smith. Thank you for watching.
There is no vaccine for the chikungunya virus. If you've been infected, take paracetamol such as Panadol, Cetamol, and Tylenol to reduce pain and fever. Sleep under mosquito netting and get plenty of rest. Take showers or sponge baths in room temperature water to lower fever, especially in children, and drink lots of fluids to prevent dehydration. If your symptoms worsen, go and see a doctor. Do not take aspirin as this could cause bleeding, and never use rubbing alcohol. To learn more, call 1-888-1-LOVE. That's 1-888-663-5683.
The Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing implemented several strategies in 2014 that will enhance Jamaica's competitiveness in the global marketplace. We now go on a journey with the ministry to review the initiatives implemented in the year 2014.
Major shipping and logistics investments, significant improvements to the major road network, enhanced public transportation and improved access to affordable housing solutions. Key achievements of the Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing in the year 2014. Government remained focused on positioning Jamaica as the fourth major node in the global shipping and logistics chain. And in October, Kingston Wharves Limited broke ground for the construction of its total logistics facility at Newport West in Kingston.
The government sees this launch as a step forward for Kingston Wharves Limited, a big step forward for the development of the logistics hub.
This represents a $2.2 billion investment in facilities for warehousing, supply chain management and manufacturing, and will employ roughly 500 persons when it opens in January 2016. Meanwhile, an initial framework agreement was reached last year between China Harbour Engineering Company (CHEC) and the Port Authority on the terms and conditions that should guide discussions on possible development proposed for the Portland Bight area. Jamaica's shipping and logistics hub goals were also advanced in August when Jamaica Customs launched a major technology-driven system to speed up the movement of goods through the ports. The $4 million system will automate export and import transactions and will be fully in place by 2016. Customs also launched its revamped Authorized Economic Operator AEO program, allowing them to fast-track shipments of trusted international traders who are in compliance with customs procedures and other controls. Amendments to the Customs Act were passed in Parliament in 2014 to support those developments. Negotiations for privatization of the Kingston Container Terminal (KCT) got underway in 2014 with Terminal Link CMA-CGM Consortium, which Cabinet approved as the provisional preferred bidder. Meanwhile, a request for pre-qualification was issued for bidders for privatization of the Norman Manley International Airport. Work also continued on Phase 1B of the airport's 20-year capital development program. In November 2014, government signed 3 air services agreements with the Czech Republic, Turkey and New Zealand, allowing for scheduled and possibly non-scheduled air services between Jamaica and these countries. In addition, a memorandum of understanding was signed with Qatar to sign a similar agreement. Government strategy for development was further strengthened in the last year with an increased drive for a more viable, efficient and modern public transportation system. In April, the state-owned Jamaica Urban Transit Company JUTC reclaimed its roots in the Kingston metropolitan region and contracted private operators to support the seat capacity in a revamped sub-franchise system. Other revenue protection and cost-cutting measures were also put in place, including fare adjustments to maintain and improve service levels. To achieve that, 73 new Volvo buses were added to the JUTC's fleet, including buses to expand service for the physically challenged. A new Smarter Card cashless system was also rolled out in 2014 to improve safety and efficiency for commuters and protect company revenue. The Transport Authority, meanwhile, strengthened its monitoring and enforcement activities to increase discipline and order on the roads.
What we are working towards is a higher level of compliance from our operators, but we are also utilizing information communication technologies to drive our development and our improvements.
In support of that, some 61 newly trained route inspectors were added to its inspectorate division last year.
Our organized transportation system is critical so that schools can operate, such that when the teacher rings the bell at 8 or 7:30, their students there delivered by an efficient transportation system.
In 2014, Jamaicans witnessed another milestone in the history of the island's road infrastructure when Segment 2 of the north-south leg of Highway 2000 was opened in August.
This is a most significant achievement in the life of our country.
Reduction of travel time between the two coasts will translate immediately to increased productivity and result in significant savings for all who utilize the bypass in terms of expenditure on gasoline or wear and tear on their motor vehicles.
Construction also proceeded last year on Segment 1 of the highway from Ferry to Linstead and Segment 3 from Monique to Osherias. Meanwhile, road infrastructure works progressed across the island under the $352 million Major Infrastructure Development Program MIDP to improve a number of roadways, bridges and retaining walls. Also, the 4th phase of the Jamaica Emergency Employment Program JEEP got underway in August. The program has employed over 40,000 persons. Under the JEEP component of the MIDP, infrastructure work was done to sidewalks, community roads, manholes and bridges. That was amplified by $200 million in island-wide road patching work done under another $500 million infrastructure and works program. And another significant development in 2014.
For future road construction activities, the bid documents prepared by the NWA will invite responses which speak only to the technical specifications required for the structure of the roads to be built or repaired. In other words, responses can either be for constructing using asphalt or concrete.
That groundbreaking policy decision was announced in May as the ministry pursued alternative effective road construction methods to reduce government spending. In the past year, the Portia Simpson Miller-led administration opened new opportunities for more Jamaicans to own a home. As part of the strategy to make buying a home easier, the Mortgage Insurance Amendment Act 2014 was passed in both the lower and upper houses of Parliament.
The amendment would result in a prospective purchaser having to find 3% of the price of the house as down payment, plus an estimated 2% closing costs for an overall equity input of 5%, exclusive of the relevant duties payable in the purchase of property. This, Mr. Speaker, is in comparison to the current down payment requirement of 10 to 15% plus closing costs of approximately 2%, which is out of the reach of most Jamaicans.
The Housing Agency of Jamaica delivered 566 titles between June and November under the Jamaica Titling Project. From as early as February, the ministry's flagship housing agency was out in St. Thomas, where some 400 serviced lots out of a batch of 436 were completed and titles handed over to beneficiaries.
Having a title makes you no longer second-class citizen in your country, but a first-class citizen as you ought to be from day one.
In March, some 70 residents in St. Andrew received land titles for units in their possession at the Seaview Gardens housing development. In addition, 80 more titles for properties were presented to beneficiaries in the Arnott Gardens community. The ministry also continued to focus on the infill housing program, making more serviced lots available and improving existing ones. The housing agency presented proud home owners with keys to their new homes at the Hills of Boscobel development, where some 99 two-bedroom units were near completion. The Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing also continued work in 2014 to deliver housing solutions under an agreement entered into with the GOJ, HAJ, Food for the Poor, and the Petrocarib Fund to provide 1,200 wooden houses and 600 concrete housing units yearly over a 5-year period. In February 2014, some 39 housing units were handed over to beneficiaries of the EU-funded Sugar Barracks relocation project at the Spicy Hill housing development in Duncan's Trelawney. Meanwhile, in St. Thomas, over 200 housing units were at various stages of completion. And under Phase 1 of government's First Step Homes program, 63 housing solutions were delivered at Hampden Trelawney in May 2014, benefiting persons in the sugar and tourism sectors. The Ministry of Transport, Works and Housing in 2014, building the infrastructure, bridging the gap to Jamaica's growth and development.
Fiscal consolidation.
The centerpiece of the program has been the need to reduce our debt.
Business reform.
Make sure that we transform Jamaica to make it a place to do business easily.
New and existing businesses will benefit from streamlined regulations and processes.
And pursuing strategic investments while protecting the most vulnerable.
The path we're on is the right path.
The economy in Jamaica is turning.
The fact that the international community is once again lending to Jamaica says something about their confidence in our policies.
It is now time to actually stay the course, not to lose the benefits of the hard decisions that have been made.
The Jamaican government is committed to continuing the process of reform.
The government of Jamaica is on a mission, going for growth, staying the course and transforming the economy through its economic reform program.
Housing fulfills the physical need for security and shelter, and it also creates a sense of personal space and privacy. The government believes that it is an integral tool for building strong and productive communities. We learn how they are accomplishing this in the next feature. Creating social inclusion and protection for the most vulnerable Jamaicans through the provision of adequate housing solutions remains a major priority for the government of Jamaica. Examining housing financing for the neediest, increased public-private partnerships, strengthening law and order in informal communities, and reintroducing Operation Pride. Just some of these solutions that came out of the latest intervention by government to create more housing opportunities for all Jamaicans. This involved a partnership with the Caribbean Association of Housing Finance Institutions, CashFree, to explore the issues with stakeholders at a recent housing conference.
Major challenge in terms of the housing sector in Jamaica, that of providing housing at an acceptable standard to those households who cannot demonstrate effective demand for even the most basic housing unit. Left to their own devices, these households have created and will continue to create unplanned informal settlements, most of which are devoid of both basic physical infrastructure as well as social amenities. Although this is a national problem, the state must take the lead in responding, despite the macroeconomic challenges.
To address the problem of inadequate housing financing, government has been working with its regional and international partners to find solutions.
We are looking at measures to do with different modalities in terms of financing for housing. We are looking at the no down payment in certain circumstances. This was tried before. It never worked, but we do believe that with some amount of refinement, we might be able to have that as one of the options on the table. We are also looking at the type of building materials that we utilize. In Jamaica, we have a tendency to want to build with just concrete and block. And we don't want to be open to other building systems and building materials. I think we're at the stage where we have to look at things like this. We need to look at our urban spaces. As we mentioned, some of it has fallen into a state of deterioration. The whole business of urban renewal, seeing how we can consolidate some of the lands we have in the urban spaces where infrastructure already exists.
Government cannot solve the home financing problem alone, so it's looked to partnerships with the private sector as well as regional and international partners.
The issues of lending and home ownership is central to the objectives of the members of the Caribbean Association of Housing Finance. And through this body, we seek to and continue to advocate for policies that support the expansion of housing to meet the needs of the people of the region.
An effective mobilization of savings and internal resources, equitable investment, and above all, good management are issues that still need our special attention.
At the recent Cash for Housing conference, Jamaica and its regional partners also explored the impact of crime on the housing market, especially informal settlements, often called squatter dwellings. One point of consensus: law and order needs to be strengthened in these communities.
Our recommendations are these: building relationship between police, the builders, social networking, proximity policing, social intervention programs, restructuring of community infrastructures.
These communities could therefore become more attractive housing options, negating the need to find land for housing elsewhere. The final major plan of action put forward at this critical housing conference was to re-establish a program that was quite useful in the past in helping the neediest afford homes. That's the Program for Resettlement and Integrated Development Enterprise, more popularly known as Operation Pride.
I wish at this stage to signal the intention of my ministry to execute a thorough reassessment of the program, as it represents the only realistic option available for tackling the problem of the increasing percentage of households being forced to develop formal, unregulated approaches to meet their housing demands. And we argue that the best option which the country has is to return to a revamped version of the Pride initiative, whereby the state utilizes the assets of land to facilitate the redevelopment and formalization of what are now informal settlements into structured, regulated communities.
The government of Jamaica forging ahead despite the economic challenges to create more solutions and put more Jamaicans in a place called home.
Millions spent on water system upgrades and rainwater harvesting initiatives. More Jamaicans becoming landowners. Projects advanced to tackle coastal erosion and a major focus on climate change. Just some of the major happenings in the Ministry of Water, Land, Environment and Climate Change in 2014. Get the inside information on the year that was. The Year in Review inside Jamaica Magazine.
Well, apart from crossing at those designated locations, pedestrian crossings, and ensuring that vehicles stop before you cross the road, where there exist sidewalks, they should be used and should not be walking in the road at all. Where there are no sidewalks, you should really, as best as possible, walk on the right-hand side of the road so that you are facing the vehicle, so that the driver can see you.
For many years, there has been much talk of doing away with the United Kingdom-based Privy Council and replacing it with the Caribbean Court of Justice, CCJ. Now, there are both final courts of appeal that retry civil and criminal cases if the original ruling is not thought to be satisfactory. But the CCJ, formed and operated by Caribbean people, would allow for a sense of regional independence. Not only that, its close proximity would make access to a fair trial much easier. In 2001, talks turned to action, and the CCJ was established. There's lots more to learn. Let's get the facts.
The CCJ, it's a Caribbean Court of Justice, as the acronym suggests, and it's a court system that the Caribbean populace subscribes to instead of going the route of England.
It's ostensibly the last appeal which replaces what we have now as a Privy Council.
The Caribbean Court of Justice is a court that was set up to replace our Privy Council.
What I've heard about the Caribbean Court of Justice is that they deals with the justice of the Caribbean at whole, and also Jamaica is a part of that band, that organization.
To understand the CCJ, one must first understand the group of people that it serves, the Caribbean community. CARICOM, as it's also called, is an organization of 15 Caribbean nations whose members come together to promote economic integration and cooperation, ensure that the benefits of integration are equitably shared, and coordinate foreign policy. The founding document of CARICOM, the Treaty of Chaguaramas, was signed in 1973 by the so-called Big Four states, Jamaica, Barbados, Guyana, and Trinidad and Tobago. This treaty was later revised to not only establish CARICOM, but also include the CARICOM Single Market and Economy, CSME, which calls for the free movement of goods, services, people, and capital throughout the region. How does this all relate to the CCJ? Well, this final court of appeal, or appellate court, has two main areas in which it can make legal decisions. Firstly, the court is charged with interpreting and applying the revised Treaty of Chaguaramas, and secondly, it is the Caribbean Regional Judicial Tribunal.
One of the mandates of the Caribbean Court of Justice is the development of Caribbean jurisprudence. And what does this mean? It means that you're going to have an opportunity for the morality, the principles, the values that are treasured in our community will have an opportunity for expression.
The agreement establishing the CCJ was signed by 10 CARICOM member states, including Jamaica, on February 14, 2001. 4 years later, the CCJ was launched in Port of Spain, Trinidad, which is the seat of the court.
The inauguration of the Caribbean Court of Justice has been a very significant one in the Caribbean because it represented the first time that we were taking control of our judicial destiny, if I may use that word, and in an effort for us to carve a jurisprudence in the Caribbean which is peculiarly ours.
Here's some more good news about the CCJ. It is free of political affiliation, and so final rulings have no prejudice. The court also acts as a guarantor for the rights of nationals laid out in the revised treaty and ensures the sustainable development of the region in the international arena. Currently, however, only Barbados, Guyana, and Belize send their final appeals to the court. For more information on the role of the CCJ, visit their website, CaribbeanCourtofJustice.org. The CCJ, your people, your region, your court. Thanks for watching Get the Facts.
Thank you once again for spending the time with us on Jamaica Magazine. I hope you found the information informative and educational. Remember, you can still share with us through our Twitter and Facebook pages and stay in the loop through the YouTube channel and JIS website. I'm Oroya Eubanks. Keep making the best of the possibilities in each day.
This has been a production of the Jamaica Information Service, the voice of Jamaica.